Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. It's a daily show, Monday through Friday. It's Friday Eve. Friday Eve. It's a Thursday. So we've got so much to get to this morning. I'm going to jump right in. You can always text me at 309-451-9299. We are getting close to this election, folks. We're like a couple of weeks out. So we are going to have a live election show. I will be streaming that night as well. We're going to have exclusive interviews with the local candidates. We're also going to be talking about ballot referendums. There were 3 of them, at least I know, across the state, 3 statewide ballot initiatives. There's also one in McLean County that asks you, the voter, to get rid of the county auditor. And there's ballot referendums across the state that we're going to be kind of looking at that could have an impact on your life. Today, we're actually going to look at one of them. Question is before the Madison County voters and a few other counties. Actually, 7 counties in Illinois have this question on their ballot. And it's asking the voters this election if they want to separate from Chicago. Yes. So it's like a secession question. So earlier this spring, the governor criticized Madison County Board. They passed a referendum resolution. They put the referendum on the ballot. And Governor J.B. Pritzker is not happy about that. So we're going to get to that. But like I said, a live election show from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. That's brought to you by Couples Construction in York, Public Adjusting Plus, Tax and Accounting Plus. So we couldn't do it without them. Big thank you to those guys. And we're so excited to bring you results as we get them. And we're excited to have stories that nobody else across the state is going to have. We work really hard to provide you insider information, and we're going to have people behind the scenes who we're campaigning on the show, and it's going to be explosive. It's going to be a night to remember. You won't want to miss any of it. Like I said, brought to you by Couples Construction in New York, Public Adjusting, and Tax and Accounting Plus. So let's get into today's show. Today we are going to be talking about Kamala Harris. She accidentally screwed up. What's new? Is that really news, Kat? She accidentally attacked Trump voters, and then she corrected herself. Okay, so she went after you. She wanted to call you a threat to democracy. We know that the left often slanders you, the Trump voter, as a threat to democracy. But here's the problem with that. She kind of needs some Trump voters right now. She needs to win over some of those votes. And I think she forgot this when she started calling half the country a threat to democracy. So we're going to be chatting about that. There's also this Looney Liberal. I just laugh. It's been on my feed all day yesterday, all this morning. It's this Looney Liberal grandmother, and she's having a complete meltdown over her neighbor's Trump sign being in her yard, which is so funny. She's just so, it's so sad. Honestly, it's sad. I pray for this woman because she's got Trump derangement syndrome. This is what happens when the media demands you to believe what they want you to believe. You come down with Trump derangement syndrome, and she's got it bad, this Looney Liberal grandmother. So we're going to be chatting about that. And then also Joe Biden demanding Trump be locked up. Now that's pretty bad. But the White House's response, a Biden official, a Biden administration official responds to this, and their response to him saying that is actually so much worse than Joe Biden actually saying, hey, we need to lock up Donald Trump. That's pretty bad. I mean, when they say, oh, you're a threat to democracy, or Donald Trump's a threat to democracy, quite literally, we have Trump's political opposition on tape saying we got to lock him up. But what's even worse, his staff's response to him saying that. I'll be right back with that. But first, let's get into this Madison County ballot referendum. So there's a question before the Madison County voters. There's also the question before Iroquois County. We've got Clinton County, Perry, Madison, Jersey, Greene. So this is like 7 or so, I think it is. This is a lot of counties that will see this advisory. secession referendum question. So what is an advisory question? Well, it's a non-binding advisory question, and that means it only reflects the opinions of the voters. So it doesn't mean that you actually get to secede from Chicago. That's what the question is. It's asking voters if they want to pretty much like annex or get rid of Chicago from the state and separate themselves from Chicago. Governor J.B. Pritzker earlier this spring, during a news conference, said Madison County is just as important to Illinois as Chicago is, and we shouldn't be talking about dividing or splitting. Quote, it's also frankly too easy to let partisanship and regional differences divide us. The idea that some place in Illinois wants to kick out another place in Illinois should not be on the ballot. It shouldn't be something that's part of a lexicon and discussion of politicians. We're one state. So, of course, he kind of does this thing, Governor J.B. Pritzker, where he says, oh, the politicians are wanting this. The politicians in Madison County on the county board. Wrong. There's so many people in the state of Illinois who actually want to separate from Chicago. And the mainstream media will not tell you this. The mainstream media will not cover this. I'm going to cover it right here on Conservative Cat. So a proponent of splitting the state. So essentially what would happen is Chicago becomes its own state, and then the rest of Illinois remains Illinois. Chicago would just be its own state, a 51st state, if you will, if Illinois splits. Now, I was talking with a proponent. His name is Dave Stouffer, and he says this question on the ballot is a very small step in the process. It's a very tough process, but we're close. I mean, I wouldn't say we're close, but definitely closer than we will be way closer after November 5th if these referenda pass. There's like 7 questions in 7 different counties wanting to split off from Chicago. Now, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he says here, it shouldn't be the discussion of politicians. It's not the discussion of politicians. The entire state of Illinois, I mean, at least a third of the state, let me be accurate here, a third of the state is having this discussion about splitting off from Chicago. So there's 102 Illinois counties in Illinois. There's 102 counties in Illinois. And about a third of those counties have passed this referendum that talks about splitting off of and splitting from Chicago, separating from Chicago, and splitting the state down the middle, right? Essentially. So both the Illinois General Assembly and Congress would have to approve, of course, this separation and this request for Chicago to become a 51st state. Prior to that approval, prior to it going to the Illinois General Assembly for approval, prior to it going to the feds for approval, you need to get 51 counties to pass this referendum. If these referenda pass on November 5th of this year, we're looking at about 33 counties in the state who have passed this thing. A couple more election cycles or a couple more referenda, and you can put it on the municipal ballot as well. You can put it in the municipal elections ballots, the general election, the consolidated election, I guess. You can put it on the ballot, and counties need to work towards this. And I think that is the solution here to Illinois' problems, right? Would be essentially effectively a constitutional convention where you get all of these states to pass or all of these counties to pass a referenda that says, hey, we want to be separated from Chicago. If you get 51, so a little over half of those 102 counties, then you can start having the discussion with the Illinois General Assembly and then getting it passed by the feds. So this is a small step, but we're 33 counties deep into this right now. So Governor J.B. Pritzker and the opponents here of splitting off from Chicago, they don't realize that this is a major discussion happening in this state. There are 33 counties in this state who are potentially going to pass this referendum outside of the referendums that are on the ballot this go around in this general election. You've got 26 states. So outside of these referenda, which we're all expecting to pass, by the way, Madison County is a little bit tougher because it's a little purple. But most of these counties are probably going to pass that referendum. It's a non-binding advisory referendum that essentially says, yes, the voters want to separate from Chicago. If you get 51 counties to say that, you're halfway across the finish. You're like halfway to the finish line here. Okay, so we're close. I think we're a third of the way there. So the list of counties wanting to separate from Chicago could grow if these referendums pass this election cycle. So Governor J.B. Pritzker, he argues, of course, now, why would we want to separate from Chicago? Well, proponents will say, hey, we need to separate from Chicago because they're siphoning our money, our tax dollars. They're taking all of our tax dollars and they're putting it towards Chicago. Governor J.B. Pritzker, of course, argues Chicagoland area only gets about 80 cents on the dollar spent in taxes. Well, so there's $1 of tax dollars, okay? Now, they'll get about 80 cents, while Southwest Illinois gets roughly $1.40. So they get more money. And that figure is growing to $2 when Southern Illinois is considered. Okay, Southwest Chicago or Southwest Illinois. So he's arguing that that's not true. Chicago isn't getting as much tax money as the southern part of the state, or as downstate, as much as downstate. So that he gets his figures and his numbers from a 2021 study. So the opponents get their figures from this 2021 study done by the Paul Simon Public Policy Institute at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. And they're echoing, Pritzker's assertion here that, hey, Chicago doesn't get as much taxpayer dollars as you say. They're not getting a disproportionate amount. In fact, they're getting less than Southern Illinois. And here's the thing, though, when you look at the study and you really look at the numbers here, they're not taking into account the multiple programs that Cook County, Chicago has. There's a ton of justice reform programs and immigration programs where you just funnel money into those programs. Okay, now that's not taking money out of, like the general fund, I guess, or like the, revenue or budget lines, right? When you look at it budget line by budget line. Yeah, maybe they get the same amount, Southern Illinois and Cook County, Chicago. But when you factor in all of these programs, like, for example, the Peacekeepers program, I've talked about that several times here on this program. This is the Illinois Department of Human Services. Now, in 2023, they allocated, or we're planning to spend, $30 million for fiscal year 2024 for the Peacekeepers program. What is the Peacekeepers program? Its goal is to address violent crime in Chicago. Doesn't do a great job of that because I've told you several times that there was actually peacekeepers who have drugged people out of their cars at stoplights. This actually happened. Drug him out of his car, beat his face in so bad to where he needed plastic surgery. It's kind of a justice reform program where they take like ex-convicts and they try to make them into like social workers. They give them like a little yellow vest and they say, go out there, and they pay them about $200 a day to go out there and try to convince the criminals to stop committing crime. Okay, these ex-cons, they hire ex-cons into this program. So this is just 1 year, $30 million to this one program. Now there's at least, I don't know, I would say 30, 40, 50 programs like that one in Chicago to try to address the violent crime where the state funnels money into those programs. Those programs are not incorporated into this study done by the Paul Simon Public Policy Institute, where they'll tell you, oh no, Southern Illinois gets the same amount. They get the same amount. In fact, they get more than Cook County. Yeah, you guys haven't factored in the immigration programs, the illegal immigration, the migrant shelters, the money that we've given Cook County to address that issue. Proponents of splitting from Chicago say, hey, we're sick and tired of our tax dollars going up north. And I'm going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about, kind of the process of how to get this question on your ballot, because I think that's kind of important. And they're going to try to gaslight you into thinking that, oh, it was the county board members who wanted this. It was politicians who wanted this. Wrong. Of the 26 counties who have already passed this, the separation referendum, the secession referendum, of those 26 counties, 24 of those counties actually got the referendum on the ballot via signature. So they didn't go to the county board. So I'm going to discuss the process. I think that's important. We will also get to Kamala Harris accidentally attacking Trump voters before correcting herself. So I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Yes, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he says that, Chicago, they actually get less than Southwest Illinois, and they get less than Southern Illinois. And you guys are crazy when you say Cook County gets more of your tax dollars. And where does he get this from? Of course, all of these opponents of separating from Chicago will say, look at the Paul Simon Institute study. Look at the 2021 study, and it proves that Cook County does not get more taxpayer dollars. Well, let's look at that study. It does not take into account the millions spent on justice reform and justice reform programs and the immigration programs. I just talked about the Peacekeeper program out of Chicago. $30 million was spent on it for fiscal year 2024. And that's just one program. There's multiple programs. If I had to guess, I'd say in the 40s, 50s, something like that. There's tons of programs, immigration programs, justice reform programs to try to address the violent crime and to try to address the illegal immigration crisis they've got going on there. There's migrants in these migrant centers, flooding these migrant centers. So this is a taxpayer issue. Dave Stouffer, a proponent, says that it remains bipartisan, that this is a taxpayer issue in people downstate, not even just downstate, but to the west of the state, to the east of the state, anywhere essentially except up north in Chicago. We're seeing the bulk of our dollars go towards these programs, and we're getting pretty sick and tired of seeing our money go up north. And these counties are tired of it. So getting the referendum on the ballot, before I took the break, I was telling you about this referendum. We're seeing it now. I think there's 7 counties this go around. So this general election, there's 7 counties who are going to be considering this question. The question asks voters if they want to separate from Chicago. There's Iroquois, Perry, Clinton, Madison, Calhoun, Jersey, and Greene counties, where they're going to see this advisory secession referendum. When I say advisory, non-binding, it means it only reflects the opinions of the voters. There is an entire process to try to separate from Chicago and make Chicago a 51st state. 26 counties have already passed this outside of the November election. If these all pass, which we're expecting them to, there will be 33 counties that have passed an advisory referendum that says, hey, we want to separate from Chicago. We want to make Chicago their own state. So that's huge. A third of the state is having this discussion. So despite what Governor J.B. Pritzker will tell you, no, it's not politicians having these discussions. It's the people. This is a grassroots movement, and you're starting to see it catch like wildfire. It's explosive. So this list of counties wanting to separate from Chicago could grow this general election cycle. And here's how you get it on the ballot. Okay, so the reason why he talks about this in Madison County, the politicians decided it. It's because they, of course, didn't go through the signature process. They took their referendum resolution and they got their county board to pass it, which you can do via the Illinois statute. This is totally acceptable under statute. So getting the referendum on the ballot can be daunting. The referendum, you can try it in McLean County. You probably will have to go the signature route because a lot of your McLean County board members are psychotic and they don't care about what you think. I'm just going to be honest with you. Because they, for example, I say this because they don't give a damn. Okay, the Mahomet Aquifer, they could pass a ban today if they wanted to, a resolution. I know, they're going to go against the state. No. You can pass a ban on these carbon pipeline projects that are slated to come to Illinois and go right underneath the Mahomet Aquifer, jeopardizing your drinking water. Okay, you have people on your county board who have actively campaigned for the legislators who sponsored that bill to make it to where carbon pipelines can go right into your drinking water, and there's nothing you can do about it. You have county board members who are side by side campaigning, actively campaigning for the people responsible for that decision. When I say they're psychos, what kind of person supports people and actively keeps people in office who attack your clean drinking water? It's psycho. Okay. So I've got facts here when I say that. They're psychotic, and they would never pass something that you want. Okay. They wouldn't pass this referendum on the ballot. Now, if you had a Republican majority, maybe. But even then, Catherine Metzger, she's the one who put that resolution out there saying, "Oh, if this passes, we're going to pass a resolution that says, hey, Illinois state legislators, we would be all for you protecting the Mahomet Aquifer in legislation. This next legislative session, we want you to protect the Mahomet Aquifer and craft legislation that protects it." Too late. Too late, Catherine Metzger. You're way too late. They already passed the bill. And that question was before them. Hey, should we add in protections for the Mahomet Aquifer? Should we try to eliminate eminent domain? Eminent domain is where a private company, these private companies, the carbon pipelines, they can come in and take your land away from you. They passed this resolution, okay, saying, hey, state legislature, we would totally be cool if you passed something that protected the Mahomet Aquifer, which this resolution does absolutely nothing. So it's a joke. It's a total joke. And the Republicans, too, on the county board, you can't trust all of them. Definitely not. Catherine Metzger, after this little silly attempt of, oh, yeah, state legislature, we would love if you protected our clean drinking water after you took it all away, after you took our clean drinking water away and decided that. Anyway, so you can go to the county board, get the referendum passed that way, or, and this is what you'd have to do in McLean County, collect signatures. So in Madison County, what they did, they went to the county board, and the county board passed the resolution putting the referendum on the ballot. Now, like I said, there's 26 counties across the state that have passed this referendum. Out of those 26 counties, like 24 of them went the signature route. In Madison County, had the advocates went the collecting the signature route and not going to the county board, they would have had to collect 7,200 signatures. So that is a daunting task. It's probably way easier if you live in a red county, go to your county board and ask them to pass this resolution or a resolution to put the referendum on the ballot. Now, if you live in a split county and your county board members cannot be trusted with that, then you would have to go with the collecting signatures route. So, like I said, this is obviously a movement of the people, not politicians, as Governor J.B. Pritzker would like to imply, because you've got 26, we're looking at about 33 if they pass these referenda this election cycle. We're looking at 33 counties that want to secede from Chicago and want nothing to do with Chicago. Okay. And out of the 26 counties, like I said, 24 of them went the route of collecting those signatures. So, ballpark 7,200 signatures to get this onto the ballot. I mean, that's a lot of people. That is a lot of people who are pro getting away from Chicago. All right, I've got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Find me on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. We'll be right back talking about Kamala Harris and how she attacked you, the Trump voter. Good morning. Hey, if you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. We've got so much to get to. I do want to get to Kamala Harris accidentally attacking these Trump voters before correcting herself. So she quickly corrects herself after, calling Trump voters a threat to democracy or whatever. I also want to get to this liberal grandma. She has a meltdown over her neighbor's sign. It's a Trump sign. And she's caught on a Ring doorbell. And this clip has gone viral. I also want to talk about Joe Biden demanding that they lock up Donald Trump, and what the White House says in response to Joe Biden's little outburst is actually worse than Joe Biden's outburst. Okay, Joe Biden actually saying he wants to lock him up. What the White House says in response to Joe Biden saying that is actually quite interesting. So we're going to be chatting about that. There's a lot of things going on before the election, and we are going to have a live election show, of course, from 7 to 9 p.m. I'll be live. I'll be streaming. I will be having some guests on as well, exclusive interviews with candidates. We're also going to be talking about the ballot referenda across the state, much like the one that we just discussed with Madison County. And we're going to be discussing that one, but we're also going to be discussing the three ballot referenda, statewide ballot referenda that Governor J.B. Pritzker got shoved through via the state legislature. He wanted this. And it was an election omnibus bill where they passed it and they tried to get rid of actually slating candidates in the middle of an election cycle. And the Supreme Court said, nope, you can't do that, and deemed it unconstitutional, at least that part of the election omnibus bill that they had passed. But part of the election omnibus included these three questions. One of them is, shall you be held civilly liable for going after a election worker, election judge, or something like that? Absolutely ridiculous. There's already laws on the books for things like assault, threatening, whatever, that protect election workers. Now, to go after someone civilly, what you're really trying to do, it was a candidate. If a candidate goes after somebody like an election worker. So what they could do and claim, it's all subjective, right? The election worker could say, oh, this candidate threatened me, and really what the candidate did was just ask for a recount, right? Or ask about your voting machine, or ask about your mail-in ballot process, right? And just because a candidate questioned you and questioned the process, they could see that as threatening and then come down on you like a ton of bricks civilly and sue you into oblivion for simply asking questions about the process. That's don't you dare for a second think that that would be beyond election workers. They're government employees, right? So don't put anything past a government employee. Like I said, somebody in the public sector is typically not your friend. They are people who got into the business because there's money to be made. Most of them, I won't say all, there are some public servants, people who actually get into office or go into the government sector to do some good and do a good job, right? There's some people, I would say most people, they're the losers who knew that they couldn't make it in the private sector because they can't make anything. They have no talent. So they decided to go into the sector that really doesn't require a whole lot of credentials or achievements or anything like that. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. This hour, I want to get to Kamala Harris. She accidentally attacks Donald Trump voters, and then she tries to quickly correct herself because she realizes, hey, I'm going to need some of these votes if I want to win. So we're going to play that clip. We also want to get to the Looney Liberal grandmother. I call her Grandma Karen. She has a meltdown, and this has been on my feed for a couple of days now, so I'm like, I gotta share it with the listeners, right? This is a Looney Liberal, and she has a meltdown because her neighbor has a Trump sign. I've got like a few of them in my yard, y'all. So, Looney Liberal Grandma, you're welcome to come up. We'll have a conversation. I don't know if it's going to go as smooth as this one did via the Ring doorbell. She actually handled herself really well, the Trump supporter who had the sign. So we're going to get to that. Plus, Joe Biden demanding that Donald Trump be locked up. He said it out loud, folks. Okay, the political opposition, Trump's political opposition, wants to lock him up. And that was pretty bad. Saying that out loud on a microphone, that's pretty bad. But what's worse is the White House's response to Joe Biden saying that. That's actually even worse than him saying he wants to lock up Donald Trump. So we're going to get to all of that here on Conservative Cat. The left, they often slander Trump voters and call them a threat to democracy. Oh, you're a threat to democracy. But the problem with that is that they are essentially calling half of the country a threat. And Kamala needs that half, or at least some of those people on that half of the side of the country, for votes. But she kind of forgets that. So Kamala was forced to correct herself here. She had a word salad moment, and she forgot that her staff had instructed her, hey, Kamala, be sure to not, slander, but pander to Trump voters. You need to pander to Trump voters because you need some of their votes. And her staff instructed her to do this, but she's not very good at taking direction. Look at her. She was forced to correct herself when she, flubbed up during her word salad. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
The notion over the last several years coming from Trump and those who follow him, meaning people like who he's running with, not his voters, but just others. The notion that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down is just wrongheaded. The notion over the last several years.
Gosh, every time she talks, I feel like she's like trying to reach a word limit. Like, you're writing an essay for your teacher and you're trying to get to the, 700 word count and, like really, really trying and stretching the words there. So hence her word salad. But everyone knows what she meant when she said this. Everyone, to those who follow him or those who follow him. Okay, we know what she meant by that. She was talking about, and it rhymes with voters. Okay, she was talking about Trump voters there, those who follow him. She was definitely talking about you. But she corrected herself because she remembered, oh, my staff told me that I have to pander to Trump voters in order to get some votes from that side. She goes on, she says, the notion that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down is wrongheaded. So that second part of her sentence there, after she, of course, goes after you, the voter, she claims that leadership shouldn't be, domination and control. But here's the thing. She has focused her entire campaign on tearing down Donald Trump. Okay, so she's blaming Donald Trump for everything. She's not really running on a plan or policy. She offers no plan. She just is focused on defeating Trump, and that's her whole campaign, is tearing down Donald Trump. So according to Kamala, that's wrong-headed, right? She says, based on who you beat down, she beats down on Donald Trump every single day. Okay, so that's wrong-headed, according to Kamala Harris. But the progressives, they are masters of psychological projection, and she just committed what one would call a Freudian slip there, okay? So she definitely was talking about herself here, where she beats down her opponent. And later in the show, we're going to be talking about Joe Biden saying he wants to lock up his political opponent, okay? So Kamala Harris said what she meant, and she said that she despises anyone who doesn't bend the knee and vote for her, as if she deserves it. Does she really deserve your vote? Has she worked for your vote? Of course not. She couldn't care less that she ruined your life. She took your livelihood. She mocks you, really, on the way to the ballot box. This woman has the gall, the cojones, to mock you. She doesn't even respect you enough to get elected. She's out there trash talking you while we're all out on our way to the ballot box, because she she really doesn't like you. And she doesn't even like you enough to get herself elected. Okay, so I don't know about you, but it seems a bit wrongheaded. And to get out there and demonize half of the country, call them threats to democracy. She's not going to win any swing voters in Middle America. I'm telling you right now. If she is selected as the president of the United States, it is. I mean, she lost the election a long time ago. I think she lost it when she went on Bret Baier, Fox News there, because she came off as just like mean. She just seemed mean to me when she was doing that interview. It's stolen. 100% has got to be stolen if Kamala Harris gets in. There's no way that most of America would say, yes, that's the woman. That's the one we want in the presidency. So I've got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. We're going to talk about unhinged Karen Grandma Karen, because she loses her marbles on a Ring doorbell. It was caught. She melted down. She just had a complete meltdown over her neighbor having a Trump sign. All right, I've got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Go ahead and smash that like button and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, I do want to talk about this a little bit. Now, this was in Schaumburg, Illinois. Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, this is Cook County. Now, this has been taking social media by storm. I'm going to quote one of these voters here, or he didn't even get to vote. He was at a polling location and the voting machine broke. Yes, so the scanner is broken and they said, don't worry about it, just put it in the box. So they gave him a box, right? And this is a drawer, right, that goes underneath, of course, the voting machine. This happened Cook County, right? I've got requests out to the Cook County clerk to see what went on exactly, but here's what the voters are saying. The voters are saying that the scanner got broke or was broken, the voting machine was broken, and it couldn't scan the ballot. Now, this has happened before. What will happen is these scanners break, and then they call out a technician to fix the voting machine, and they will place your ballot in a drawer, lock it up, and then they'll scan it at a later date, and they'll treat your ballot as if it's a mail-in ballot. Here's the thing. There's an early voting process, and then there's a mail-in process, okay? At this point, if the early voting process de facto becomes a mail-in ballot process, what's the point of even having early voting and having that process where you feed your ballot through a machine? At this rate, right, if you are going to continue having mistakes with the voting machines, maybe we should just get rid of the early voting process and we'll all just do vote by mail. And by that, I mean, does your vote even really count with vote by mail? You don't know. I mean, I say this all the time and I get a lot of backlash for it, but would you mail yourself, $500? Put $500 in the mail and send it to yourself. And I mean, would you be willing to trust that process? The U.S. postal system, right? Would you be willing to send yourself $500 in the mail? Probably not, right? So, and I've already talked about extensively on this program about the mail-in ballot flubs that have happened across the state. Right here in McLean County, there was, of course, mail-in ballots that were sent with the wrong return address envelope. It was addressed to Monroe County. One ballot did make its way over to Monroe County. Now, of course, the McLean County clerk assured me that this is all right. It was only one ballot. We figured it out and we corrected the issue. We sent out corrected envelopes within the day. Yes, of course. But here's the thing: mistakes happen, and there's just a loss of confidence. I'm hearing from voters. Now, this happened in Schaumburg, the voting machine flub. But I've got another story for you as it pertains to McLean County. That for the stream at the top of the hour next. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you being here each and every single morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. It's the Daily Show, Monday through Friday. Grandma Karen, that's what I'm calling her. So here's the problem. The mainstream media, really, one of the many problems with the mainstream media is that, otherwise normal people become completely unhinged after watching some mainstream media. I myself have never fallen victim to the mainstream media. I would say, a little bit in college, I fell victim to it. But it's always really corny. That's why I never really bought into the whole ABC, CNN, MSNBC. I was always very skeptical because it just seems so corny to me, these cable news networks. And I was like, I don't know if I really buy into this whole mainstream media nonsense. Normal people become completely unhinged when they watch mainstream media. It's unclear how put together this Grandma Karen was, this Looney Liberal was prior to watching mainstream media. I bet she was a very normal person, but unfortunately, when you watch this propaganda, you come down with a severe case. In this case, it was a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome, TDS. So she was on this Ring doorbell camera footage, and it was released, and it's been viral. It's been on my feed like all day yesterday, today, this morning, and I was like, all right, I gotta share it with the city's crowd. With the city's crowd, I gotta share it with y'all. So I will be playing that clip here coming up next. She's not very nice, this one. Okay, the property owner in the clip starts to ask the grandmother, the Grandma Karen. I'm just going to call her Grandma Karen. I don't know what her name is actually, but she asks her, "Hey, have you been by here before?" Screaming. And she, of course, dances around the question, the Grandma Karen. So you guys are going to really like this clip. Find me on the stream on YouTube, Conservative Cat Show. We're going to be right back at the top of the hour with more news next. Okay, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We are going to get to the Looney Liberal here in just a second. But as I was sharing with you before, here, let me see if I can share this with you. I'm going to share this. Hopefully, yeah, I can share this. Let me expand this. This is a video. Let me play this. I think that you guys will be able to hear it. Let me know in the comment section if you can hear it.
Well, so much for early voting. Their scanner's broken. And they said, don't worry, we'll just put it in a box and we'll make sure we scan them all tonight when everybody leaves. And I said, no, I'll come back another day.
Okay. So I don't know if you guys heard that, but I can kind of discuss what was going on there. This guy, he's in Schaumburg, Illinois. And he goes, well, so much for early voting. Their scanners are broken. This was in Schaumburg, and I don't know, it affected like a ton of voters. I was looking at the videos. It appears maybe like 50 or so, 60 voters were at this early voting location in Schaumburg, Illinois. And he says that the election judges there had said, don't worry, we're just going to put it in a box and we'll make sure to scan them all tonight. And, he claims in this video that a lot of those voters just left. They said, nope, not doing that. Of course, I don't think I would do that. I mean, let me know in the comments section what you think. Would you do that? Would you leave your ballot just to be counted at a later date and, they put it in a drawer and you don't see that it's actually scanned through? I would not be, I'm not cool with that. There's a reason why I didn't opt in to the mail-in ballots, because I like seeing voters are different. There's no set way a voter has to vote, because we have things like mail-in ballots, we have things like early voting or voting on election day, whatever you prefer. That's what they'll tell you, is that they want you to have all kinds of options to vote. That voting is so important and we want to give you all of these options to go vote. Okay, but when an option fails, and it de facto becomes a mail-in ballot. So these voting machines weren't scanning, and then they shoved them into a drawer and locked it up. And they're going to wait for the technician. Sometimes there's like a chip that malfunctions, I guess. This is what happened. I think it was in Cook County last year. It's happening again this year in not only Cook County, this is Schaumburg, Illinois, but also McLean County. So in McLean County at the Eastland Mall, and I'm going to have more details from the county clerk today. So this is a breaking story. This is a developing story. All I know is the reports from voters at this point. So the voters experienced this at Eastland Mall. About 50 voters had experienced a voting machine shutting down. It wasn't working. The election judges said, hey, we're going to put them into this drawer. We're going to lock up the drawer, and we are going to count your ballots at a later date, or we're going to scan your ballots at a later date until the machine gets up and running again. And this is, of course, going to shake confidence. Anytime you take a ballot from somebody and they don't see it scanned and they see it go into a drawer, of course, people are going to say, I'm worried. So it happened in McLean County, and it's really odd that it happened. I'm just saying that it's weird. The Cook County incident happened on Monday, and then the McLean incident happened on Tuesday. So this is happening across the state, where the early voting machines, they shut down and they have to call a technician out to repair them. And in the meantime, your ballot is sitting in a drawer to be scanned by an election judge. And according to statute, of course, you have to have a Republican election judge and a Democrat election judge present when they go and they scan these at a later time when the machine is up and rolling. So many questions. Don't know why there's only one machine. Don't know why the machine was broken, what malfunctioned on it. There's just so many questions. When you see these abnormalities, of course, your confidence is going to be shaken a little bit. So happening across the state. This isn't just a McLean County issue. This is happening across the state. You've got an incident in Schaumburg, and at that point, voters just said, you know what, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to put my ballot in a box for you to scan later. Maybe. I'm going to leave and I'm going to come back when the machine is up and running again. If it were me, if a voting machine went down, I would just tell the voters, hey, the machine went down. You might want to come back at a later date or come back on election day. Or go to this polling location. Their voting machines are up and running because you can vote at the clerk's office always. And then at these other early voting locations like the Eastland Mall, for example, that is a, additional early voting location. You can always go vote at the clerk's office early. That's what I did. I went to the clerk's office in Logan County and I voted early. They don't have, I don't think, I got to double check in Logan County if they've got multiple early polling locations. As time goes on, they start to open more early voting polling locations as more and more people show up to vote as it gets closer. More and more people want to vote early. That makes sense. So then they open up more locations. Here in Logan, I don't believe they do it just because it's a more rural county and they don't have as many people. So I would imagine that they don't have a ton of early voting locations. I know that the Bone Student Center was one. I know that Eastland Mall is one. The clerk's office is always one. I would go to the clerk's office. If you're going to vote early, go to the clerk's office. That is where I would say, but even then, if a machine goes down, my recommendation to you is to just tell the election judge, nope, I would prefer we shred this ballot. If you filled out the ballot, I would prefer we shred this ballot and I just come back at a later date. If they want to take your ballot and shove it into a drawer and scan it at a later time, I would just politely tell the election judge, no, I'm not doing that. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We've got so much to get to today. I do want to get to Looney Liberal Grandma Karen. I've been calling her Grandma Karen. And like I said, it's really not her fault. I pray for this woman. I really do. And I pray for people who have been devastated by the disease of Trump derangement syndrome. It's really not their fault. It's the mainstream media, and it turns really normal people into completely unhinged nut jobs. So I don't know how put together this woman was prior to watching CNN, ABC, MSNBC, any of the cable network news channels, right? I don't know how put together she was prior to exposing herself to propaganda, but she now seems to be suffering from severe TDS. Here is a Ring doorbell, some camera footage. I've got it here on the stream if you want to watch it, but the sound is just amazing as well. She goes off because she's got a Trump sign, right? Her neighbor has a Trump sign. This woman goes up, knocks on the door, bangs on the door, and starts screaming at her neighbor for having a Trump sign. Let's take a listen.
Hi. I want to know how you can vote.
We can't answer the door right now, but if you'd like to leave a message,
Here's the Ring doorbell.
Shameful.
Are you the one that walks by here and always screaming at people?
No, I haven't walked by recently.
Okay, because a lot of people walk by and scream.
Yeah, I suppose you are voting for the devil. Don't you know that?
No,
Why are you voting for him?
because I believe he is the moral candidate.
Oh my God, you for that one.
That's
Moral?
exactly right. That's how your side acts.
Oh my God,
That's
he's
how
the
you
most
guys-
immoral person around.
In your opinion, that's
Oh,
okay. I'm sorry. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. God bless you.
What? That's insane. Oh, that's crazy. Oh, that's wild. I feel really bad for this woman. She seems sweet, right? That sounds. She sounds like somebody you definitely would want to invite inside for dinner. No. Firstly, look, the fact that the property owner asked if this woman was the woman who kept walking by screaming at people, likely means that this Grandma Karen, I don't know her name, is walking by in the neighborhood screaming at people randomly. Notice how she doesn't say, no, I didn't scream at people. Instead, she says, I haven't walked by recently. Okay, so this means she's walked by and has had meltdowns in the past, but she's taking advantage of the fact that, recently is kind of a subjective term. Thus, she's lying by omission. Okay, she's omitting, facts of when she was there. She uses this vague term, I haven't been by recently. This woman's walking by on a regular basis and screaming at people for having Trump signs in their yard. Secondly, I've got to talk about Grandma Karen here. She's making herself miserable by being so bothered by these signs. I feel bad for this woman. You've got to be a really miserable person if you are walking by and making yourself worked up. Okay, if the sign works you up that much, don't walk by. I mean, really. And this is a sad reflection and realization, I guess, of the times we're in. Grandma Karen, like I said, she is victim of the mainstream media, and it's quite sad that she's got this severe of a case of Trump derangement syndrome, but she's a victim of propaganda, and they have successfully programmed her into believing that Trump voters are other. They're a different kind of people. And they've othered Trump voters, and that's sad. That's what the left has intended to do, is divide us. And thirdly, I do want to talk about the property owner calling Donald Trump the moral candidate. I like that she did that. I appreciate that the property owner here did that and said, "Oh, Trump's the moral candidate," because that really peeved off Grandma Karen. She referred to Donald Trump as the devil. Wow. So the property owner referring to Donald Trump as a moral candidate really set Grandma Karen off. I would have loved to seen, I wish this would have went down a little bit differently. I would have loved to seen like an approach that was a bit more productive. Like, here's what Donald Trump did, and here's what he plans to do going when he goes into office. You know, I always tell people about the tariffs. I think that is really something you can point to and have a productive conversation and change somebody's mind with, because they see, especially if you live in middle America, Belvedere, right? Stellantis, this is a closed down facility. They aren't allowing the auto workers to go back into that facility. Probably because it's just a money pit, and Stellantis thinks that there's way more money to be made at this Brazilian plant and operating there. And they're investing, what was it, $6 billion from 2025 to 2030 into this Brazilian plant, and they're not investing here in America, which is really sad. But a tariff, which is what Donald Trump wants to operate, or what wants to do, a tariff would make it to where, you know, it's too costly to import the goods from Brazil, the cars from Brazil to the United States, and he puts a 50% tariff on it. And they're like, it's too expensive to import our cars into the United States now. Let's just make them there. Okay, so then there's jobs, there's opportunity, there's the economy is back, you know, and I try to explain this to people. I think that is the biggest, because you want a good job here in America, and Donald Trump is going to bring those back. You know, in Illinois, when I talk to people, we have like the record, like we're like, I think the second or the third highest unemployment rate in the nation, which is really kind of sad. So when I talk to Illinoisans specifically, I tell them about that and about his policy with the tariffs. And it's really hard for people to say, oh, that sounds like a terrible idea. No, bringing back some production here in the United States is a great thing. This woman has stage 4 TDS. So I don't know if you could have a productive conversation with this woman. That's easier said than done when you're dealing with somebody with stage 4 TDS. So I don't know if her mother taught her how to act or treat others as you would want to be treated. I don't know if this woman was ever taught that growing up, this Grandma Karen. But it's evident, and what I know is true. She believes what the media demands her to believe. And she is just victim of mainstream media propaganda, which, you know, it makes it sad, but it also makes it comical at the same time. She's been successfully programmed with the lies, and it's not fair, really, to Grandma Karen or the other voters out there who believe that Trump is quite literally the devil. That being said, at least Grandma Karen could have, you know, the least she could have done was give her neighbor the benefit of the doubt and discuss this non-issue like rational adults, right? Really, this is a non-issue. You have a yard sign, a Trump yard sign. I don't understand why it's that big of a deal, okay? But they could have had this discussion, like a couple of adults, a rational discussion and a productive discussion. But I don't think that this woman was willing to do that. But that's the least she could have done. It would have been, you know, weird because it's a kind of a non-issue. Who in their right mind goes up to someone just because they have a yard sign? But Gosh, I don't know. I give her the title Grandma Karen, because who in their right mind would really make an issue out of a yard sign? The property owner said as the property owner said, she says, God bless you. I wish you the best, right? And that's all we can do in this situation is just wish this woman the best, because it's got to be miserable to hate half of the country as much as this. I don't hate leftists. I actually feel bad for them. This Grandma Karen, after watching that video, I'm sad. I feel sad. I feel bad for this woman. And I don't hate leftists. I hate the people at the top, the elitists, the Kamala Harrises, the Barack Obamas, because they know exactly what they're doing. I don't hate the voter. Because they're just brainwashed by the mainstream media, and there's not much I can do about that because I don't have access to their TV remote. If I had access to their TV remote, I'd take the batteries out and I would save them. That's honestly, when I talk to leftists, I just say, hey, take the batteries out of your TV remote. Really, that's the best thing that you can say to those people is just take the batteries out of your TV remote. Seriously. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Get. When we come back, I want to talk about Joe Biden because Joe Biden says he wants to lock up Donald Trump. And that's pretty bad. That's really bad that he said that out loud. It's your political opposition, Donald Trump's political opposition saying they want to lock him up. Obviously, he means lock him up literally, because they've been trying to do that literally. He tries to, he catches himself, Joe Biden does, and he says, politically, of course, I want to lock him up politically. Sure, Joe. No, clearly you meant physically lock him up because you have been trying to, you indict him for simply breathing at this point. Like you guys have been indicting Trump since he announced that he was running again back in, I think it was 2022 is when he announced officially. But for the last couple of years, you've been indicting him every chance you've gotten. So yes, you mean physically lock him up, Joe. But he's demanding that we lock up Donald Trump. And what's even more hilarious, or concerning really, is the White House response to Joe Biden saying that. That's almost worse than him actually saying he wants to lock up Donald Trump. So we're going to get to that here on Conservative Cat. I do also at one point want to get to this story where we've got J.D. Vance completely destroying Weird Tim Walz. And what he says is the biggest difference between Trump and Kamala Harris. He cooks Tim Walz because J.D. Vance gets out there and he says, hey, Tim Walz has a difficult job. He's got to get out there and he's got to trick the American voter into thinking that they're not voting for the person who had the tie-breaking votes, the American Rescue Plan Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. He's got to trick people into thinking that Kamala Harris didn't do that. And that resulted in some of the worst inflation we've ever seen, probably the worst inflation crisis in modern American history. He's got to convince voters that she's not that same person. Okay, that's a really tough job. And that's what J.D. Vance talks about here. And he says the big difference between Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, is that Kamala Harris made this mess. Okay, and she's out there blaming Trump for this mess, but Donald Trump hasn't been in office for, what has it been? Like nearly 4 years, 3 years? No, 2020, when did he get out? 2021, so 3 years. Yeah, he hasn't been in office for 3 years. All right, I do have to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. How you doing this morning? It's Thursday morning, 7:24 a.m. You can subscribe to my channel. That's YouTube, Rumble. Type it in your search bar, Conservative Cat Show. Man, sometimes, it's just so annoying when I spill my coffee. Does that annoy you? Sometimes I just spill my coffee and it gets all over, and then there's like this little coffee ring on everything. I spilt my coffee this morning, but that's all right. I'm not as senile as Joe Biden. Let's get to Joe Biden, shall we? So Joe Biden, he actually got out there and said that he wants to jail or lock up Donald Trump. That's what he said out loud. Okay, so I know that I know that the Democrats want Donald Trump locked up. How do we know this? Well, they've declared lawfare on Donald Trump in order. That's in order to do so. I mean, they are actively trying to lock him up. They have indicted him for. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if they indict him for breathing. Okay, so they've indicted him so many times over silly things, and he actually came out and he said that he wants to lock Donald Trump up. Joe Biden does. So, I don't have a peer-reviewed, independently fact study done by fact checkers, independent fact checkers, providing me this information that I know that they want to lock Donald Trump up. I can just see from my eyes that they want to lock Donald Trump up, considering all of the indictments, right? So, they can only beat him if he's locked up. That's why Joe Biden came out and said we have to lock him up, because they're not beating him. It's for the reason that the left and the media can deny they're denying that this is happening. They are actively trying to jail their political opponent. They've denied this. Now we have the guy admitting it out loud. Joe Biden himself admitting it out loud. Joe Biden, you remember him, right? He's the president of the United States, allegedly. So let's take a listen to what he says here. Here we go.
It sounds like I said this.
If I can get it to play, hopefully. Here we go.
Bizarre. It sounds like I said this 5 years ago. You'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Politically lock him up.
So he adds there, he goes, we got to lock him up. And then people start clapping. And then he's like, whoop, I got to say politically lock him up. That's what Joe Biden does there in a split second. He says politically lock him up. Come on, it's not politically lock him up. You guys are trying to lock him up physically, like actually jail him, considering all of the indictments. I mean, you guys have declared lawfare on him. And the reason you're doing that is because you can't beat him at the ballot box, so you have to jail him. Our Puddinhead, I like to call him Puddinhead, Joe Biden, our commander-in-chief here, he remembered when the voices in his head started to make sounds that he can't come out and say that he wants to jail his political opponent, so the little voices told him to say politically jail him. And he tried to claim that they needed to lock up Trump, but only politically lock up Trump. So, what's the lawfare then? Then why the indictments? If you're not actually trying to lock him up, then why are you indicting him? Why have you indicted him over everything? And you continue to try to lock him up 3 years after he's been out of the presidency. So I don't know where Joe Biden is getting this argument where, we're trying to politically lock him up. No, you're trying to physically lock him up. I don't know if he knows where he is or how all those people got into that room or who pooped his pants. He didn't even know who really pooped his pants. So that's a pretty bad response, or a pretty bad statement from Joe Biden. What's even worse is the Biden official who came out and responded to Joe Biden saying this. He implied that Joe Biden doesn't know where he is, actually, the Biden official, when he was texting somebody. Now, we don't have the name of this Biden official. Apparently, this Alex Thompson reporter got a text message from a current Biden administration official. And he says, he implies that Joe Biden didn't even know where he is at. So according to this Biden official, no one really listens to Joe anymore, who is allegedly still the president of the United States. Yes. So this is even a worse response. So here's what the current Biden official said, quote, I'm quoting Alex Thompson. He received a text message from a current Biden official saying, for better or for worse, no one's listening to him anymore. And his words have little power and less reach. It's a blip. Gone in any meaningful way by midday tomorrow, if it makes it that long, right? So him saying, oh, we got to lock up Donald Trump, it's not going to really go anywhere because nobody really listens to him. He has less reach with his words. Nobody listens to him anymore. The president of the United States, you've got Biden administration officials out there saying with their mouths that nobody's listening to him. Okay. And he implied that Joe Biden doesn't really know where he's at here. Okay. Nobody really listens to him. And, his words have little power. Oh, Joe, it's okay. Just go ahead and have a pudding cup. So we're less than 2 weeks away from the most important election of our lifetimes. Now, a former Biden administration official also gave the text to the reporter Alex Thompson, and he said, we got to lock Joe up. So he also, texts him saying, we got to lock Joe up because this is so bad for Kamala Harris. Noting that this could be politically unhelpful to Harris, a former Biden administration official texted me saying, we got to lock Joe up. So the Harris campaign, like I said, I don't think that there's a lot of beef between the Harris staffers and Joe Biden staffers. Now, this is a former Biden staffer or Biden administration staffer. I guess he was shooting text messages and saying, we got to lock up Joe because he's destroying Kamala Harris's campaign. He's destroying her politically. And now Joe Biden has gotten out several times and undermined the Kamala Harris campaign. We know that with Ron DeSantis and the hurricane. And he's done it multiple times. In fact, Joe Biden even was at an event and he put on a Donald Trump hat. No, quite literally, he did this. He put on a Donald Trump hat. So he's been undermining Kamala Harris's campaign. Perhaps he's a little salty about being ousted as the nominee. I don't know, but we're less than 2 weeks away from the most important election of our lifetimes. And I'm hoping there's no major world events that happen or wars or that break out because, even his own staff is saying that he's not running the country right now. Just think about this. A current Biden official is saying, for better or for worse, no one's really listening to him right now. And his words have very little power and less reach. It's a blip. It's going to be gone by midday tomorrow if it makes it that long. What? This is wild. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but we're going to talk about J.D. Vance absolutely destroying Tim Walz. He says that he doesn't want Tim Walz's job because Tim Walz has got to go out there and act like, Kamala Harris isn't the reason why we have record-breaking inflation and runaway inflation. So we'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News and talk Bloomington Normal. Man, this is really interesting. I'm going to share this with you here on this stream, just so that way you can take a look. I just am kind of curious of who's donating to whose campaign in the 2024 election. Jim Rogel. He's running in the county board district, I believe, 4. Yes, David Dunn is in that district as well. He's the Republican there. And we've got Jim Rogel in that spot right now. He's the incumbent. Now they're spending big money on this race, folks. Don't you forget the reason why. It's because the current board is split. So they're spending big money. You got some big names spending some money on Jim Rogel here in the District 4. Now, I took a look at this, and I'm on IllinoisSunshine.org, and I highly recommend you guys use IllinoisSunshine.org to your advantage and check out who's donating to who. Follow the money. This is really interesting. $10,000 was installed in his campaign coffers here from the Local Jobs and Economic Development Fund. It's not local. Okay, so these are some big fish, and they've donated, to Democrat causes all across the state here. But what's really more interesting is the types of people. So you've got Senator Kaler, you've got the Friends of Don Harmon. These are people in the state house. You've got Sharon Chung. You've got all of these member unions donating to Jim Rogel. And he's got $25,000 cash on hand right now. So if you look at David Dunn's, and I'm doing this in real time for you because this is this is important. Follow the money. Now, 25,000 is what I just said. And this is the case for almost every single race. You're going to find that Republicans are largely self-funded. They don't have their friends in the state house donating to their campaigns. They don't have the unions donating to their campaigns. And as famously as President Don Harmon had said, unions don't, or Democrats don't win without unions, and unions would be nothing without Democrats. This is like a kind of a, that's you scratch my back, I scratch your back. We get you government contracts, so that way you guys make a ton of money, and we, all we ask for in return is that you donate to our campaigns every election cycle. And David Dunn here in County Board District 4, he's a candidate there. He's going up against Jim Rogel. He's got $12,000 of cash on hand, okay? And that's pretty typical for a county board member. If you look at some of these statewide races like state representative or state senator, it's going to be astronomically higher. That is one of the highest. The 25,000 is one of the highest things I've ever seen come out of the highest campaign coffers I've ever seen at a McLean County board district level. This is just one district in McLean County, and it's $25,000 cash on hand. He's got about half that, David Dunn. And you've got, these are names that I recognize. You've got some Republican Central Committee, that's pretty standard. You've got the Chamber of Commerce, you've got the Farm Bureau, you've got the Ross Webb. These aren't, people currently in the state house donating to David Dunn, right? You've got the Jim Rogels, and they've got, the unions, big union money is in the Jim Rogel campaign. You've also got this, whatever this Local Jobs and Economic Development Fund is, $10,000. This is just, a Democrat non-government organization, and it's one of the bigger ones, and they've donated $10,000 to his campaign. So absolutely wild, that they're spending this much money on a county board race. It should tell you something. They're freaking out because David Dunn is gaining some traction among the voter and voters in the electorate. And then also they're freaking out about how, they're freaking out about McLean County not getting the Democrat majority. They're very, very close to getting that Democrat majority on the county board, and they really want it and then on top of that, you get rid of the county auditor. I mean, you're looking at unchecked spending by the Democrat by the Democrat majority board in McLean County. This is bad. So yeah, just wanted to show you that, to show you the difference between these two candidates. Follow the money. Look at who's spending money in this guy's campaign. It's the unions, and of course, we know that what the Democrat play is. It's to award them government contracts. You're my buddy. You donated to me in my campaign. I'm going to make sure that you have government contracts. And we're going to award this company because you donated my I mean, this is what happens at a state level, but it even happens at a local level. All right. Do want to talk about J.D. Vance really quick. I want to get to him because he went after Tim Walz, of course, in this really amazing way, because he talks about how Tim Walz has a really tricky job because he's got to try to convince Americans that they're not voting for the person who issued the tie-breaking votes for the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan Act, which resulted in the worst inflation crisis in American history. Take a listen here.
In American politics, I got to go around and just remind the American people that Donald Trump delivered rising take-home pay and low inflation. That's a pretty easy job. Governor Walz has to go around and somehow convince the American people that Kamala Harris is going to solve the very problem she's been creating over the last 3.5 years. That is tough. We should feel bad for him. We should say a prayer for Governor Tim Walz, because that is a tough, tough job.
He's cooking them. He is cooking them. That's J.D. Vance. And yes, one of the fascinating things about this election is everyone, voting has lived under both administrations. Everybody knows which candidate put more money in their pockets, while the other side, they've enriched foreign interest while citizens suffer under these crazy policies. So according to Walz, the government should believe Americans when they say that they're worried about the economy. So I want to play this clip here. Here's Tim Walz talking about, when I talk to voters, they are worried about the economy, and we should believe them because you can't tell them that inflation's down. Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump doesn't even have to work all that hard because they're writing these ads themselves. The Democrat Party is writing the ads themselves. So take a listen.
They're worried about, and when they say that they're worried about the economy, believe them. They are worried about the economy, or they're struggling. You can't tell them, well, inflation's down, interest rates are coming down. They need to see the tangible things that'll make a difference.
Oh boy. So he makes my point. Tim Walz is making my point. He's talking to voters about the economic hardship they're feeling under the Biden-Harris administration. And he says, quote, when they say they're worried about the economy, believe them, because you can't tell them that the inflation is down or interest rates are coming down, because it's just not true. So when does Kamala Harris stop blaming Donald Trump for her mess? I just want her to fess up and say, hey, this is a mess. I wouldn't go about it the same way as Joe Biden, but she hasn't done that. She has not run away from Joe Biden. She continues to say that I won't do anything different than Joe Biden. She actually said this on The View. I wouldn't change anything. So when does she run? When does she actually start campaigning and owning up to this mess? We don't have a whole lot of time left, so I'd imagine she's not going to own up to the mess. I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We're going to be right back next.
Say it sends the wrong message for the party to be,
of the referendum. In Champaign County, there's a similar referendum that also has the support of the late incumbent George Danos, said hiring an internal professional that isn't chosen by the electorate could cost taxpayers more. Danos describes after he raised concerns about a fiscal policy, the county board passed a measure to ask voters if they want to eliminate the county auditor position. I'm Katrina Parker.
Good morning, friends. Thanks so much for tuning in each and every single day. I do want to share this with you one more time. Jim Rogel, he received $10,000 here from, here's all his donations. Okay, so we've got $10,000 here from the local Jobs and Economic Development Fund, which is based actually in Delaware, which is really odd. It's kind of funny how they call themselves a local job and economic development fund. This is based in Delaware. So this ought to tell you that they're taking this race very seriously because they're worried about or they really want this Democrat majority on the board. Now they have involvement. It's a dark money group from Delaware, and they've been spending thousands in Colorado. So this is a mayoral election. They had been spending money on in the 2018-2019 mayoral cycle. And then they've got several candidates for Pueblo, which is Pueblo, Colorado. Pueblo, Colorado. Now they've got dark money here, so I'm going to share this with you. Here we go. Here's the article. This is a dark money group from Delaware is spending thousands in Pueblo's upcoming election. Okay. So they did this back in 2018, I guess, during the mayoral election cycle. Now they're doing it in the current election cycle. They've got several candidates up there. It's a 50C4 nonprofit organization, and it's a social welfare. This is dark money. I mean, the fund is listed on the website for Act Blue, an online fundraising program platform used by many Democrats. I'm looking here. Okay, it's the organization supporting. Yeah, follow the money. This is just, you can read through this article. I'll go ahead and throw it in the comment section. This is crazy. That he's got this company from this nonprofit organization that you don't even really know a whole lot about. It's from Delaware. It's based in Delaware. And they've been spending money in all kinds of places. And really, it's like a dark money group. So that's weird that we've got, I mean, this is a county board. Remember, this is a county board race. And the fact that they've got this group spending all this money on Jim Rogel should concern you as a voter. It really should. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. You know, I was on IllinoisSunshine.org and I was talking with y'all about Jim Rogel. Jim Rogel is running for county board in District 4, and David Dunn is also in that district. He's running as the Republican. Jim Rogel is the incumbent Democrat. They really want this county board, the McLean County Board. They want it to go majority Democrat. So they're spending big money in this race, Jim Rogel's race. It was $10,000. Now, I haven't found too much on this local jobs economic development fund, but there is an article out there that exposes this specific nonprofit organization, and this article calls them a dark money, or it's a dark money group from Delaware. So tell me why a group from Delaware is spending money on a McLean County board member? Don't know. It's a little weird, isn't it? We've got $10,000 from this group, and I don't know much about this group. I haven't been able to find. It's an organization based in Delaware, and they did spend money in Colorado races, Pueblo, Colorado races, which is really kind of interesting. It looks like the McLean County Democrats are using this money to spend big in these McLean County board races. The McLean County Democrats, they spent a lot of money on Jim himself. We've got, what was it, $7,000. That's a lot of money for a local party, right? A local Democrat party. He's got $25,000, like I said, cash on hand. In comparison, his opponent has $12,000 cash on hand. When you look at these things on IllinoisSunshine.org, you can kind of tell, the interest groups, because they're these big PACs or unions, and you see like these huge donations. And then when you look at the Republican candidates, it's really mind-boggling where you look at the Republicans and then you're like, hey, that's my neighbor. I actually know that person. And it's just like the names of your neighbors. And they have like, $50 donation here, $100 donation here. And follow the money, folks. These big interest groups, these nonprofit organizations installing $10,000 into Jim Rogel's campaign, and this is an organization based out of Delaware, that should really raise questions in your head, and some light bulbs should be flashing off. Ding, 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 ding. Hey, this is not normal for a McLean County board member to be receiving big money from these interest groups, this dark money group in Delaware. Why? What? And that's how you can argue, hey, Jim Rogel isn't somebody of the people. Who is donating to his campaign? I don't recognize anybody on this list. So it's not your friends, it's not your neighbors, it's not people in McLean County, it's people in Delaware. And that's fishy to me. That's weird. All right, I do want to, we did talk about Tim Walz. I don't think that Tim Walz is going to tell Kamala Harris anytime soon what she's going to do about the runaway inflation, being that she's de facto president. We know that she's de facto president. Joe Biden doesn't even know who pooped his pants, right? So I don't know when he plans on telling Kamala Harris, hey, do something about the runaway inflation so that way we can win this race. But these people have no solutions. We know that they have no solutions, and it's only going to get worse under Kamala Harris. It's bad under Sleepy Joe. It's not going to be as bad, or it's going to be worse under Kamala Harris. Sleepy Joe, there's no comparison. Under a Kamala Walz regime, it is going to be a nightmare. There's less than 2 weeks until Election Day, and Kamala Harris is doing very poorly in the polls. CBS, I think, has her up 20. Don't listen to the mainstream polls. Look at Polymarket. Look at where the money is. People are betting on Donald Trump. So get ready for this wave of unethical journalism as well. They've got all kinds of lies out there about Donald Trump, about how he didn't want to bury a military member. And the sister of the military member, dismissed this hit piece in Atlantic, alleging that Donald Trump disrespected her ethnicity. She was a Mexican, and they're saying outright lies in the Atlantic. And be wary of the unethical journalism, because it's going to spike up here in the coming days before the election. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you. We'll talk again tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. See you later.